Georgia Congressman Andrew Clyde joins me this afternoon to discuss his expectations on how these tariffs will impact American workers and farmers. Congressman, good afternoon. Good to see you as always.
Well, good afternoon, Terrence. Great to be with you.
All right, so let's start in your state of Georgia. What do you expect the impact of the tariffs to be on the farmers in your state? When, of course, you think of Georgia, you think of peaches, corn, peanuts, that kind of thing. So there very well could be an impact. And as I understand it, your district is one of those kind of rural agricultural districts as well.
Yes, indeed. It's quite rural. Well, first of all, I think that we should be giving President Trump the benefit of the doubt here. Because this is his second term. He used tariffs very effectively in the first term. And I don't think the tariffs that he has in mind are going to be long term. I think he's using them as leverage. And he's a very effective negotiator. So I think we just need to wait and see in the Rose Garden ceremony to see what he's going to do. But I trust President Trump. I think he's got this well under control, and he's got great advisors around him.
You use the word leverage. One of the things President Trump has said repeatedly is that he's hoping that these tariffs will ultimately lead to more manufacturing here in the United States, that the companies or countries that are being tariffed will build their products here and then won't have to pay those tariffs. How would that potentially benefit Georgia?
Well, I think you would see unemployment go down. We've got a number of folks that don't have jobs that could certainly be working. We have seen that. And so I think these pro-growth states like Georgia, we're a great state for business, will actually greatly benefit from manufacturing coming into our state.
Manufacturing is also, I've been looking up the statistics. I almost feel like I'm stalking you. I've been looking up some statistics about your district. And one of the things that came up that I was somewhat surprised about is that manufacturing is actually a pretty big deal there in Toccoa specifically, that it's one of the major industries. So I would imagine that you're watching that pretty closely as well, thinking there might be opportunities for Toccoa.
Absolutely. At Toccoa, Gainesville, Clarksville, there's a lot of manufacturing in the 9th District in Northeast Georgia. So I'm looking forward to seeing more manufacturing coming into our district, promoting more jobs and giving more opportunity for folks. So I think this is going to be a good thing, and I think President Trump's got it under control.
When it comes to leverage, the president, of course, putting out these tariffs, how many international companies international companies in general are doing business, particularly, and I'll just focus on your district. In your district, are you seeing more domestic companies, or do you have some international influence there that hopefully will spur even more growth?
We do have some international influence in the district. We've got some manufacturing companies that come from overseas. But honestly, I would like to see more American growth come into the 9th District. And these American companies will be able to invest more when you have the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which we're going to pass, and we're going to extend those tax cuts. So I think this is all going to be very, very good for growth and for an increase in gross domestic product here in the United States.
We'll all, of course, be keeping an eye on the Rose Garden at 4 o'clock to see exactly what the president says. Obviously, we're surmising at what's going to happen, but he's pretty much kept his specific plans close to his vest. I'm curious, are you at home right now, or are you in Washington, D.C.? I can't quite make it out from the background.
No, I'm at my desk in Washington, D.C. I am still here, and I will be here tomorrow, too. So
okay,
I did not leave to go home.
You're chuckling because you know where I'm going next. Most of your colleagues are at home right now after Speaker Johnson sent them home yesterday following those 9 Republicans who voted against a measure to pretty much block a resolution that would have allowed for proxy voting. Explain what happened here, and kudos to you for staying in Washington, but explain to us really quickly what happened here.
Well, I was very, very disappointed that the rule got taken down by these 9 Republicans. It's all about proxy voting, and no matter who you're claiming the proxy voting is for, in this case, it's for expectant mothers and new fathers. I'm sorry, but proxy voting is not constitutional. The Constitution requires that we come and we assemble and that we vote. If we're going to be here and we're going to do our job, then we actually have to Congress. We have to debate We have to bring our ideas and talk to folks face to face. Communication is 70% nonverbal, only 30% verbal. So if you're not in the room, then you're not contributing as much as you could. We saw proxy voting as a disaster during the Pelosi regime. I experienced 2 years of it myself. I mean, there were many abuses of proxy voting on both sides of the aisle. And it would, in my opinion, forever harm the institution if we start allowing proxy voting under Republican control. Now, we can't control the Democrats. If the Democrats ever get power, they may want proxy voting to come back, but not Republicans, or we will forever change the institution for the worst.
Well, you've made it clear where you stand on the whole issue of proxy voting and its constitutionality. But where do you stand on Speaker Johnson deciding to send your colleagues home? I called it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems from the outside looking in like he pitched a hissy fit and said, you know what, I didn't get my way, so go home. How do you see it?
Well, when a rule goes down, then you're not able to vote on what the rule was covering. All right. So in one respect, it was not possible for us to actually go and vote on what we had intended to vote on the very next day. There would have had to been a new rule brought forward, that new rule being voted on, and then you have a time frame that has to exist before you can actually bring that piece of legislation to the floor. So that's a problem in and of itself. I was very disappointed that the rule was taken down by 9 of my colleagues.
So what happens next? Obviously, and again, kudos to you. I'm going to say this time and time again. I appreciate you at least staying in Washington, D.C., so if something comes up, you can get to work. But what happens next? Because let's just be honest. Time is running out, and unfortunately, you and some of your colleagues, not you specifically, but some of your colleagues haven't necessarily shown the urgency to get the work of the American people done. And I hate to sound critical, but I suspect there are many people who would agree.
Well, right now, we're waiting a little bit on the Senate for them to complete their budget resolution so that we can start the reconciliation process, which is truly the process that will increase or continue, rather, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And then it will also give us additional gross domestic product, and then also the tax cuts that are within the budget reconciliation bill, the 1.5 minimum trillion in tax cuts, and with an upper area there, upper level that really could be anything. So that's what we have to work on, and we're waiting on the Senate for that. But we have other pieces of legislation that we can bring across the House floor. Exactly how that's going to happen is going to be up to Speaker Johnson. I think on Monday we'll see a new rule come up. And then, but I don't know right now. I'm not on the Rules Committee to tell you exactly how that rule will be crafted. But we will vote on it again, and it will be Monday.
Now, there is word that the Senate could come out with its budget framework by the end of this week. Are you optimistic that it's going to be something that will be palatable? I'll use that word for you and your Republican colleagues in the House. Well, right now, the minimum not tax cuts, but spending cuts in the Senate is $3 billion. That's barely palatable at all. In fact, that's not palatable. Ours is $1.5 trillion in tax cuts over the 10-year budget cycle. We have been communicating constantly with the Senate that what needs to happen is they need to bring up the House resolution and pass the House resolution as we have presented it. It's a very, very good resolution. We spent a lot of time working on it to make sure that we could get the Republicans on board necessary to pass it. And it extends the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It gives the president the wins that he has promised the American people with regard to the TCJA. And then also it funds it neutrally so that it does not increase the deficit whatsoever. In fact, as growth continues, I think it would decrease the deficit. Congressman, these days, I think it's impossible to talk about the budget and not bring up DOGE. So here we go with that. The latest news from DOGE is that Health and Human Services is laying off about 10,000 employees based on some of what's been happening with DOGE. How satisfied are you with the work that's happening under Doge, and what are you hearing in terms of its long-term future, and maybe even more importantly, its near-term future, the end of May when that 130 days elapses?
Well, I will tell you that the intent of Doge was to be here until the 250th anniversary of our country, which is July 4th of next year. And I think Doge is doing a phenomenal job. Elon Musk is doing an incredible job of identifying fraud, waste, and abuse, and then leaving it to the secretaries of each of the branches to make the decisions as to what they're going to do. I think during the Biden administration, you saw a tremendous expansion of the federal government. When they wanted job numbers, they said, okay, go and hire more federal employees to kind of fill in that job number gap. And so that was very disingenuous by the Biden administration. So we're seeing these employees, which really have not led to efficiency. In fact, they've led to exactly the opposite, being let go. And that's what needs to happen. We're bringing solid business principles. I'm a businessman. Elon Musk is a businessman. Donald Trump is a businessman. But he's bringing solid commercial business principles into the government, and that is only going to help us be more efficient and spend our tax dollars more wisely.
Congressman, we appreciate your time. And again, kudos to you for sticking around Washington, D.C., despite some of your colleagues having been sent home. Next time I'm in D.C., I'll treat you to a Red Hot at Ben's Chili Bowl just for staying around. Thanks so much for being here, sir.
I will take you up on that. Thank you, Terrence.